Welcome back to another episode of Ballers, Beers, and Banter. I'm your host, Dave. Sometimes it hurts to be good. Sometimes it hurts to be bad. Here with Anthony and Moose.
Hello!
What's up?
And that is, of course, different than I usually do, but a reference to Jalen Hurts, who didn't play so well, my guy, but still managed 22 points in fantasy football today. And he hurt you, Moose, because you were trying to win a matchup. You needed a couple Jalen Reagor points there at the end. You needed one more catch to Jalen Reagor.
The refs hurt me more with not understanding how the sport works.
So Jalen Reagor had a called back touchdown?
No,
I missed the first half.
No.
Oh, no.
Dak Prescott had a called back touchdown.
Dak Prescott. And so this is for a different league where you have Dak.
No.
Oh, same. Oh, you have Dak and Jalen Reagor on the same team.
Yes.
Oh, so Dak. Oh, no. So then they took Dak off the field and you couldn't get Dak points.
Yes.
That's wow. Wow. That's too bad. And of course, Jalen Hurts, my guy, who I've been promoting everywhere. The two leagues I have him in, of course, didn't win those leagues. And then the league I was going up against him just managed enough to beat me by a few points there at the end. So thanks, Jalen. But I'm still back in my guy. Goodness gracious. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Doing well.
Good. Listen to you the Sunday podcast. Love the new segment you guys came up with. Apparently not as much as Moose though. Moose, you couldn't stop giggling the whole time. You were like you were loving the minute. What is it? The Moose minute and the Harrison hurry up. Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. So looking forward to that as a fan on Sundays from you guys. So that was great. So you guys did a great job recapping yesterday's game. So we don't need to do that. We're going to get into, of course, today, waiver wire topics. We're going to get into just a little breakdown of Philly Dallas, but we're going to start with, and the guillotine, of course, Moose's new segment, which is whether or not to drop those underperforming players. But first, let's get into some headlines. So I'll throw it to you, Anthony, and rattle off some updates on the updates.
Yeah. So, you're back in the NFL season when Josh Gordon is being mentioned. So he has been reinstated, and it looks like he is planning to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, they're signing him to the practice squad.
Right.
Everybody gets signed there first.
Everybody gets signed there first. They're going to probably work him out a little bit, let him get back into the swing of things. You excited about this? I know in the past, Moose, you have been interested. Like, I don't think you've picked him up in any leagues in the past, but you have been interested in his availability on some teams.
He's been out of the league for too long. He'll come in. He'll be a gadget player. There's no way he's coming in, especially in Kansas City, and being a focal point of that offense.
I'll believe it when I see it. He's not gonna. No, definitely not a focal point. I don't even think Mecole Hardman owners.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't think so. No,
we're like waiting for Mecole Hardman to break out.
You know, Spider-Man. The new Spider-Man's coming out. It's like the multiverse.
Yes.
Right, and like one change can change. They bring in all these alternate universes. I feel like in an alternate universe, that Josh Gordon could have been the greatest receiver of all time. But if, things didn't go his way, the suspensions and the substance abuse and this and that, and just went down this other path, and he's turned into this kind of like running fantasy joke, unfortunately. I wish him all the best. I hope he gets to win a Super Bowl, or something, and finish his career well, but not in this universe of the multiverse.
I don't know how many total leagues you guys have, but over under, I'm assuming we all have around 5 leagues. How many leagues will he be picked up in this week on the waiver wire?
I don't think that many.
I don't think that many anymore. People have learned their lesson.
I think I'm
they're not like Moose 2 years ago.
I mean,
Josh Gordon's back. The Flash.
He didn't really do anything with the Patriots. Did next to nothing with Seattle.
I think each team he came back and played on, I think there was one double-digit game for each of them, and that was it. So he shines for one game and then disappears.
Yeah, we'll see. But I wish him all the luck. We wish him luck. Next headline, Anthony.
So there was a trade. Carolina traded Dan Arnold to
the Jaguars. The Jaguars. Who they just played.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. No.
Right.
No, they played Houston.
No.
I get my terrible teams mixed up. I apologize.
Yeah, so they traded him for the cornerback CJ Henderson, and there was some draft picks exchanged. I mean,
Because
Dan Arnold.
Carolina lost J.C. Horn, their first round draft pick, so they needed help because they're 3-0. They're going for the playoffs.
And I mean, I think Dan Arnold would have been more of a fantasy option in Carolina than the Jaguars. The Jaguars have quite a few receivers.
I think quite the opposite. I think Dan Arnold
They'll use him more.
Probably becomes more of a fantasy option. He was an option in Carolina, but I think now it's probably, even with the way things are going in Jacksonville, they have a great tight end that Trevor Lawrence can check down to now.
Yeah, which he'll need.
We'll see.
What about Tommy Tremble now, the lone tight end in Carolina who's been doing very well, Notre Dame draft pick, blocking really well, hasn't caught that many balls. Do you think he takes a boost here? Is he a sleeper? Is he like the next Ty Conklin for you, Moose?
I think he's worth a pickup on the waiver wire. Why not?
Okay.
In that one spot where you've been picking up and dropping people, why not?
So don't tremble when going.
I'm happy you brought up old Ty Conklin.
I know. I heard you guys talking about him yesterday. Big. That was Moose. Moose has made some good calls. That's a classic sleeper. Moose, never sleep on Moose's sleepers. But guys, the real upsetting news about this trade is that we've lost out on the Arnold to Darnold combo.
Yeah,
Sam Darnold to Dan Arnold combo.
Which the announcers were struggling with quite a bit.
Of course, which is hilarious. So that's too bad. But oh well.
And Tremble, I mean, he got into the double digits this week on Thursday Night Football, so they probably felt that they could go forward. Yeah, he had 10.2 fantasy points.
I feel like we should come up with a name. We should call him Tommy Boy. One of my favorite movies growing up, Chris Farley, or something with Tremble, Tremble. I'm all about that bass. I'm all about that tremble. Something like that.
Maybe just call him Tommy Tremble.
Okay, Moose. Okay, fine. We'll just do regular names on the podcast.
It's something to do with Tommy, and it's something to do with Tremble. It's right there in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a noteworthy fantasy option yet, so I don't think he deserves a nickname yet.
Okay.
You could call him TTT.
Tom Tremble touchdown?
There you go.
I like it.
All right.
It's Tommy time. All right, next one.
Moving on, James White is out indefinitely with a hip subluxation.
Well, now they're just making up injuries.
No, it's the same injury that Fitzmagic has.
Oh, okay.
It's now everybody has them.
Yeah.
Never heard of one before, but it's the flavor of the month.
There's two.
I'm pretty sure a hip subluxation is when something goes directly from a solid phase to a gaseous phase and skips becoming a liquid. That's a subluxation. So his hip went straight from, I think I made this joke actually, when Fitz got hurt.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. You guys didn't laugh then either, I guess. All right.
I mean, and Moose, I know, is not high on Damian Harris, but Damian Harris had a down week.
A rare down week for him.
Rare down week. He's been in double digits the first 2 weeks. So, and what did I say last year? He really showed up when the backfield was injured. So the backfield is injured. Ramondre Stevenson out. I don't know when he's coming back. James White out, and J.J. Taylor, I believe, is out as well.
I think Ramondre played last game. He just wasn't very good. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I didn't watch that game. Yeah. But
I'll check for you. Keep going.
Damian Harris will be good going forward. Rashod Bateman will be back at practice for the Ravens this week, which is good news for Lamar Jackson. He'll have another option.
Terrible news for Marquise Brown, who dropped 18 balls last game.
Yeah, but they won't have to heavily rely on Marquise Brown.
Ramondre did not play last game. I guess it was Jonathan. It was J.J. Taylor I was seeing. So, yeah.
So J.J. Taylor played. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Played one carry for 2 yards.
So good news for the Baltimore Ravens. Moving on, JuJu Smith-Schuster is day-to-day with bruised ribs. Does it matter? Are people starting him?
I mean,
I didn't draft him in any league.
I'm day-to-day on the Pittsburgh Steelers as a fan. So we can get into that later.
Are you worse off than the Bears right now?
No, the Bears are the worst.
Probably just as bad. Did you see Ben run and throw the ball and then just fall on his face?
Oh, yes. God, this poor guy. I feel bad. I feel a little bad for him. Like,
he lost all the weight and now he's off balance.
Well, now he gets hit, he falls down easier too. So I don't. Anyways, keep going. JuJu's out with bruised ribs, but if they do figure it the heck out, I'm sorry. That's how frustrated I am. With Deontay potentially out and JuJu, then yes, Chase Claypool would have some significance. You would figure would have to have some significance, but
Yeah.
Maybe they'll start doing, short little passes to Najee Harris.
Najee.
And he'll just tear it up in the open
This
field.
poor guy, if he was drafted to a team with no line, he would be almost the number one running back in fantasy.
But also, it's not working. Like, how many more times are you just going to run him into his own offensive line?
Yeah.
Just dump
Canada.
Just dump it off to him in the open field and let him run.
Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, as someone whose last name represents the country that we reside in, a little upset with Canada right now. Canada.
Not good. Christian McCaffrey not being placed on IR, which means he should be able to come back within the next 3 weeks.
Well, they're hoping.
He has a sore McCaffrey.
If you go on IR, you at least have to be out for 3 weeks.
Right. I understand how it works. So they're hoping, right? But here's the thing. Now, this could be worse. If you go on IR, then at least if you're the McCaffrey owner, 3 weeks, gone. I got to figure it out. But now you're he's missing 1 week, and then you're like, maybe he plays. Maybe he dresses in 2 weeks' time from now, and then you're like, oh, I got to play him. It's Christian McCaffrey. But they're like, turns out, no, we're not playing him. He gets 1 catch for 4 yards,
Whether it's IR or not, you need to have a backup for him. We said this in the offseason that he's under the injury-prone category now because they use him a lot. So you should have had a viable running back backup on your team if you drafted Christian McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. So he's injured. He could be gone for 3 weeks. And like you said, 1 or 2, but get a guy that's good enough to back him up for that amount of time. Hopefully you have one already or trade for somebody. But I realize it's easier said than done. But
that is
still good news.
That it is with the running backs that are out there. But yeah.
Moving on, KJ Hamler, torn ACL. He is done for the season. So this means maybe a guy we'll talk about today that I probably didn't put on our list, Tim Patrick has had a solid 3 weeks. Maybe not just a red zone target, but they have enough people on offense. So Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick. They have a couple other young receivers that'll get in there, but they shouldn't worry.
Denver shouldn't worry, is what you're saying.
Right.
Another torn ACL, guys. Like, this is are they going for the record this year or what?
It's a lot of injuries.
Does NFL stand for no freaking ligaments? Like, they're just gone. They're all gone. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then the last bit of news I have is A.J. Brown has a strained hamstring. He's week to week. So I'm assuming when you hear the day-to-day, those are guys that are probably going to, be a game-time decision and could feel better during the week. Week to week makes me think that he will be out most likely this week and then come back the week after. So that's what I'm prepping for. I have him in one league. You promised me that he would get 15 points. He did not. Fortunately,
well, I didn't just promise you. I guaranteed it.
Yeah, you guaranteed it.
And I mentioned that he's been healthy this year. So I'm really sorry. I have to apologize. I think I cursed him. Thank goodness it wasn't serious, AJ Brown. I'm sure you guys saw my beer chugs on Instagram. 3B Fantasy Pod on Instagram, Gmail, Twitter, Facebook. Go check us out. And while you're checking us out, download the Halftime Sports app. Come join us live for start sit questions and all sorts of fun chat on halftime, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday night. So I tried to tag AJ Brown, but I guess he limits his. You can only tag him if he's following you or if he's a friend. I don't know. I couldn't tag him, so I tagged the Titans. So Titans, if you're listening, I apologize for the curse, but AJ Brown, you're my guy. He's hamstrung, but I'm heartbroken for AJ Brown right now. I hope he gets healthy soon.
Yep, and that's all I have.
But DK, the other beer bet, DK did not disappoint. Boop, boop, boo. So Moose, we're doing this beer chug right now? Is this happening live?
Oh, we're doing this right now?
I mean, we're talking beer bets. I guarantee DK will get 15 points. You took the bet. He did it. How many did he get in half point PPR? Because I have him in PPR, and he was like even more. He was crushing it. Let me hold on. Half point PPR, I have him at. You guys still with me? 19 points in half PPR? That's wild.
Killed it. And now we can finally commence the boomer busting with Tyler Lockett.
Yes.
Because he had 2 boom I mean, 2 boom, 1. He got injured a bit.
He boom busted.
He boom busted. Maybe he'll boom busted. Then that's like a regular receiver. If you're going 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, that's like a regular decent receiver.
It's true.
Okay, so well done, DK. I'm gonna chug a beer for you. So you guys continue talking, and for the viewers on YouTube, well, enjoy this beer.
Can we put this on Instagram after?
We can try.
Okay, because I mean that's where they all go, but it's okay. It'll be archived on YouTube forever. The Patriots mug, down she goes. I mean, that's a big mug, but I don't know if it's a full beer.
It's
How can we know?
Beer.
That was good. That was the right amount of time. That was the right amount of time for a full beer. It's a full beer. It's a full beer. He's fixing a divot. Always makes me think of that voice. Well done, Moose. Well done. The only way to have enjoyed the last 30 seconds of the podcast is to be watching on YouTube. So go check us out on YouTube, subscribe, and you'll get notifications for when we release episodes and like our
only if you hit the bell.
Hit the bell, notification bell, and subscribe.
Smash the bell.
Smash.
I think you're supposed to smash it. Like Quasimodo in Hunchback of Notre Dame. Okay. Because he's lives in a bell tower.
He rings the bell. He swings
he
on the rope.
Smash the bell.
I mean, can you think of anyone smashing a bell more than that? No, I didn't think so. So you're welcome.
I'm not getting into
You're
this.
welcome for that reference. All right. I think we're ready to get into waiver wire segment. Or do you want to do guillotine first? What's the trend? Guillotine.
Monday night guillotine.
Monday night guillotine.
So for people tuning in for the first time for this segment, the Monday night guillotine is players who you may have spent draft capital on. Maybe you picked them up off waiver wire. You were super excited because they are supposed to be performing at a certain level, and they are not. And now the question is, do you cut them from your team, or do you keep them in hopes that things turn out well? So put them in the guillotine or keep them on your team.
Ooh,
our first one is a first-round draft pick in most cases. Jonathan Taylor Tutty.
Jonathan Taylor, no touches is more like it, but yeah. I mean, I know you guys talk about big disappointments. The Reddit segment / last night, just talking about people that disappointed, and of course AJ Brown and Jonathan Taylor, my 2 keepers in our main league. So it's been tough sledding there, but you can't drop Jonathan Taylor. You can't drop him at this point. He's your first round draft pick. There's more favorable matchups coming at some point here. I think you mentioned a Houston in a few weeks. At worst, I would hold on to him until he has a good game and then try and trade him, if that's how you're feeling about him right now.
But are you thinking about benching him if you're deep enough, depending on matchup?
If you're deep enough to bench him, good on you. I think you'd still probably flex him at this point. I think what concerns me is Carson Wentz and the health of Carson Wentz and the whole offense. So, I mean, obviously they weren't very good last game. Now they're 0-3. And Quentin Nelson, you guys didn't mention this in injury updates yesterday. Quentin Nelson out. So he also sprained his ankle. So both Carson and Quentin, who both had the same foot injury and surgery, who both came back way sooner than projected, both sprained their ankles. Coincidence? I don't know. I think it's a chain, what they call it, not chain reaction, but chain of injury, the mechanism. So your foot was messed up, then your ankle gets busted. Next is the hamstring. Gosh, knock on wood. So only 10 touches on the ground for Jonathan Taylor last week. I mean, the offense just wasn't rolling. I'd keep him, though. Miami's not doing great. Baltimore's defense is in shambles. Those next 2 matchups. Houston after that. He's got a Tennessee, a Jets, and a Jacksonville midseason. Just hang on to him.
I'll throw out a scenario for you, how we were discussing with Antonio Gibson versus J.D. McKissick. Are you thinking of slotting in Nyheim Hines over Jonathan Taylor because Nyheim Hines had a big week? I'm just asking. I don't have this decision.
See, if I own Nyheim Hines separately without Jonathan Taylor, I'd certainly be considering flexing him. Especially because when they're behind, they like to put Hines in for 2-minute drill, hurry up offenses. So he gets a lot of work in the passing game. If you have both of them on your team, that's just a terrible position to put yourself in.
Yeah.
Like he's not a true handcuff, Nyheim Hines, you know what I mean? He's like a usable other back. He's not like a Pollard for a Zeke or a Madison for a Cook, you know? So that's a tough. I just don't do that. Don't draft both those guys anymore.
All right, let's move on to the next player.
Sure.
Next player we got is Robert Woods of the LA Rams.
Oh my goodness. Stafford really likes Cooper Kupp, eh?
Well, Cooper Kupp is really good. I think it's not that Matthew Stafford likes Cooper Kupp. I think it's just that Jared Goff sucked at getting him the ball.
Possibly. Yeah. I would maybe. I mean, it must be. And Cooper's one of those classic possession receivers, right? He's like Julian Edelman from back then, a Wes Welker. You know, he's quick. He gets open. He knows how to find gaps in the defense. So, especially in PPR leagues, just absolutely a monster.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me, like even this past week, we know the Tampa Bay cornerbacks aren't that good. You can throw on Tampa Bay. Deshaun Jackson had a really big week.
Whoa, hold on. Deshaun Jackson did not have a big week. He had a big play.
But I mean, a big play, you can have a big week from a big play.
Yeah, but you have to make it clear that he could have easily had a very dismal week.
Okay, so then we go to the next guy that I was going to mention, Van Jefferson. He was the third receiver with 6 targets. Robert Woods also had 6 targets, but where does Robert Woods fit here? So you said Kupp. Goff can get Kupp the ball. Kupp is usually the short yardage guy, and then he like jets down the field. Deshaun Jackson was the down the field threat, and Van Jefferson did everything else. So where does Robert Woods fit? Robert Woods was in the backfield for a carry. Like, is he just not in the game plan anymore? Is he just too old? Because Deshaun Jackson looks faster than Robert Woods, but I don't think Deshaun Jackson's a week-to-week guy that you can count on. But I'm just thinking that maybe Robert Woods is not needed anymore.
I think you have to hang on to Robert Woods. I mean, defenses are going to start respecting Cooper Kupp a little bit more, and you hope that Robert Woods, gets open, has some bigger weeks. But he's also too valuable. Like he's a guy you could stash on your bench.
Right. I would say bench him.
You could, don't bench him for now.
Yeah.
Like the Rams are good, right? So exactly like Moose said, if they start keying off Kupp, create some favorable matchups for Woods. I know Kupp's usually inside, maybe Woods is outside. Plus, he's still on the field. He was on the field for 88% of snaps this past week, 98 the week before. He's getting some targets. He'll have some good games. He just unfortunately is not the rock solid guy hovering on what wide receiver 1 status that he has been. So too bad.
All right, so he's benched. All right, next player coming up. He is amongst every other free agent running back in the league. Elijah Mitchell on the San Francisco 49ers.
Cut him.
Is that the case? You just straight up cut him now that it's just him and Sermon? And
I don't think so. I think if he
Kerryon
comes
Johnson
back, it's going to be a mess.
Who else?
It's going to be a mess. But if he comes back, he's better than Trey Sermon at this point.
Is he?
Yeah.
After just one game?
Yeah.
Well, he was ahead of him on the depth chart. Trey Sermon was benched because of him.
I don't think anybody is ahead of anybody on that depth chart.
Agreed.
Well, Elijah Mitchell was, but if you saw Trey Sermon, he's bigger, stronger, but he's not that fast. And San Francisco wants fast, slashing backs who can find the open. Like Trey Sermon had this open hole that should have gone for 60 yards, and he went for 10 last week.
And this is not towards Moose. This is towards you. I ate so much beep, 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 beep in the offseason when I said all this about Trey Sermon, and you guys are like, you're ridiculous.
Well, hold on. I still think the guy can be great. Give him a break.
I wasn't coming at you. I wasn't coming at you.
It's his first game.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't coming at you. I was just more for Dave. When I said he looked slow and I thought he was the least dynamic back out of the rookies, I ate so much for it, and now you're agreeing with me?
In an actual NFL game that he started, yes, he did not look very fast.
This is what I foresaw happening.
You were right.
All right. Well, I think if you have Trey Sermon, he's cuttable.
Trey Sermon's cuttable?
Yeah.
Well, I'd wait to see.
He just
if
started his
Elijah
first
Mitchell
game.
comes back. I'd wait to see.
Yeah.
Because what if Mitchell's there like, oh, his shoulder's worse than we thought. He's gone.
I don't think he's cuttable because we talk about rookies and giving them an opportunity to prove themselves. So yes, from what I said about his talent level, but this is a team where running backs get injured. He started his first game, got into the double digits. So as a slot in flex play, he did what he needed to do. I put him in one of my leagues. I won my week. I didn't get a single digit point from anybody on my starting lineup. So he did the bare minimum.
If Mitchell comes back, it's a full blown committee. So if he's only getting,
but if you're saying not to cut Mitchell, why would you cut?
No, I would cut Mitchell too.
Oh, okay.
That backfield is gonna be a nightmare. So unless you're devastated at running back and those are your only options, those are your only options. But if you have other running backs, you're probably safer playing those other running backs each week than trying to figure out if it's going to be Mitchell or Sermon.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I'm still hanging on to Sermon though because of his age.
Yeah, if you got the spot, hold on to him. But I also think you could probably trade him off or,
right?
Agreed. Bench him. Okay, the next one, big. This was a huge name in the offseason.
Huge,
and has frankly been pretty disappointing. Maybe not because of his skill, but a certain Matt Ryan's skill. And this is Kyle Pitts. What are you guys doing with Kyle Pitts? You trading him? You trading him to the highest bidder? Which would be the lowest bidder?
Yes. I would trade him because you might as well try to pick up a Ty Conklin or a Dawson Knox you guys mentioned yesterday or whoever. It's going to get you right now the same amount of points. And to me, this is
they scored 3 times more points than he did.
Right. So to me, this is not a Kyle Pitts issue. It is a Matt Ryan and Atlanta Falcons issue. And if you ask me the two, so sometimes teams are terrible. Sometimes teams are bad in real NFL. But as long as you're losing 41-30 and all the fantasy options on your team have plenty of touchdowns and plenty of volume, you're happy. It's fine. What you don't want to see ever in fantasy football is terrible teams that also aren't scoring fantasy points. And that is the Atlanta Falcons and the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Those to me are the two biggest fantasy disappointments as teams. Atlanta won. They won their first game against the Giants. Don't get me started on the Giants. But still, nobody's getting big points. So Mike Davis, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, all huge fantasy disappointments over in Pittsburgh. Najee Harris could end up being good, but all the receivers, big disappointments. So I would trade Kyle Pitts. I think it's going to be an issue this year. Yeah.
But this is what we warn people.
I would say, I say trade him, but I think he's also quite a good bench stash as well. I think if you have the room on your bench, you just tuck him away for a couple of weeks and see what happens. Eventually they're going to have to realize that, he could be a star player for them.
Well, yeah, they drafted him 4th overall.
Well, this is it. So, somebody
it was silly for them to do that.
Somebody probably has to get fired along the way, and then he'll start seeing.
They could have drafted a quarterback to replace Matt Ryan, which they'll now be searching for after this.
Speaking of drafting quarterbacks, that brings us to Justin Fields, who is a disaster. Anthony, do you want to share your opinion about your franchise quarterback of the future? How many excuses do you want before I interrupt you?
The Fields got browned.
I'm not going to make. They're not excuses. They're facts.
Okay.
The coaching staff for the Bears has been awful. Matt Nagy.
Fact number 1.
Matt Nagy calling the offense is the problem. He was calling the offense last year.
Fact number 2.
They removed them from doing it, and then he took it back over. So he
fact
needs to
number
stop.
3.
That's very annoying. The issue isn't with Fields, but we told people not to draft Fields, to not stash him on your bench. The Bears aren't in a good position to support a guy of his talent, so it's not his year. I think you should guillotine him. Get him off your team.
I agree.
He's
cut,
but
he's gone.
Just to play devil's advocate, rookie quarterback in their first start with a terrible O-line against Myles Garrett and that great D-line. I'm just saying.
Okay, but
I'm just saying.
But this is what I'm going to say. So it's the same thing I said about Jameis Winston, that regardless of how you feel, these are streamable. If Justin Fields ends up playing well, at best, he's a streamable option. Nobody's going to keep him on the bench. They'll pick him up for a week and drop him. So you'll get an opportunity to pick him up off the waiver wire at some point. So don't stash him.
Yeah,
There's better guys.
If he starts against Detroit.
No, Detroit.
Did you see what
here's what I'm going to tell you.
Baltimore?
Here's what I'm going to tell you about Chicago. This is how much of a tire fire the QB situation is in Chicago. They actually suggested that they might start Nick Foles.
Well, he's the best quarterback. He's the best quarterback of the three of them.
Yeah, so that's how you know it's an absolute tire fire in Chicago.
Dalton hasn't been terrible. I don't think Nick Foles is better than Dalton. Did you not watch?
Yeah, but Dalton has to be healthy. Dalton has to be healthy first.
If all three of them are healthy, Dalton won. But
I just want that big. I want that big Nick energy for you and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah,
I would actually just like any energy in Chicago.
Yeah, me too. It was awful.
All right, so
it's depressing.
Somewhere Mitch Trubisky's laughing. Okay,
on Barstool Sports, actually. In fact,
yeah. Did you watch that interview? It was hilarious.
I did not. Anyways, enough about those people. Let's go on to Devonta Smith. How are we feeling about Devonta Smith?
Bench him. You're obviously not feeling very good. Week 1 was promising. Last 2 weeks, not so good. But I would bench him. Dallas is good. I mean, do we want to talk about Philly Dallas?
No, we don't. We just want to talk about Devonta Smith and what we're doing with him.
I'd bench him.
Yeah, I'd bench him or trade him to the Philly fan in your league.
Of which there's one in every league.
He was targeted 6 times, which is the second most. So I would say put him on your bench.
And they went for it. There were some plays where they're like, Jalen Hurts went, screw it. Like one of those, screw it, Devonta's out there somewhere. You just didn't catch those, but it was in this like double coverage.
How many other tougher defenses do they have coming up?
So they're Kansas City, Carolina next 2 weeks. Kansas City, favorable. Carolina, so-so, I would say. Tampa, who you can throw on, and they're going to have to throw because they'll be losing. Vegas, Detroit. Those are all pretty favorable. Chargers, Denver, no good. New Orleans, no good. Giants, not so great. And then Jets. So
So let's assume that the rate of injury is going to increase, and they're not looking so hot right now. He might be someone you want to trade sooner than later.
I don't think anybody wants him in a trade at this point.
Yeah, that's it. Or you might end up cutting him. So he's a bench stash if you value him, and find somebody else who values him and see if you can get something for it. Okay, moving on to somebody else who potentially had value, and now it's not looking so great. Tyson Williams, what was the 4th-string running back of the Baltimore Ravens, is looking like a 4th-string running back for the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, I think everybody looks like a 4th-string running back in the Ravens backfield at the moment. It's a similar situation to the San Francisco 49ers. This past week against Detroit, Latavius Murray, 2.8 points, Tyson Williams, 2.2, Freeman, 0.8. So
but
you don't want anybody in this.
5 carries.
5 carries.
Least, you know what I mean? At least the week before he had 13, even though he didn't get that many points, but 5 carries. Not good.
Yeah,
and then
not so great.
And then Lamar Jackson, 7 carries for 58 yards.
And they're playing Denver, Indy, Chargers next 3 games. That's gonna be tough sledding.
Yeah, not great.
Although Indy's 0-3. I don't know how's their run defense right now against running backs. I think they're good, actually.
I think
Derrick Henry hit him up.
You're just benching him because, I mean, Latavius Murray is not better than him. And
also, who else are you going to get in the waiver wire?
Yeah.
That would be better right now. I mean, Carlos
you just got to hold on to him.
Definitely not. So, just hold on.
Well, actually, Dave, Carlos Hyde, in fact, doubled his points.
I know. For 2 to 4?
Gainwell on their last drive.
Give me the big difference.
He was better than McKissick. Yeah, so there's not much out there. You hang on to him because
you hang on to him because you were probably the
bite the bullet.
J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards owner in the first place. So stick it out. It's injuries are injuries. I imagine he'll turn it around. I think we spoke about this quite a bit in the offseason that we presumed that Baltimore wanted to start passing the ball more. And I mean, they did. We mentioned it yesterday. If someone can drum it up real quick here.
They pass it a lot. They just didn't catch it that much.
Yeah, Lamar tossed 287 yards. Not bad, Lamar. Attempts? Yeah, he only landed 16 of 31.
A lot, but a lot of those were not his fault. Like at least 4 Marquise Brown his hands drops that like we would be upset about playing in the playground. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Any other guillotines?
We got one more guillotine. Unfortunately, we're talking about Chicago again. Darnell Mooney.
Darnell
Mooney. I don't think any of this is Darnell Mooney's fault.
No, but because the situation is so bad, I think there's a bunch of wide receivers on the waiver wire that you would rather play than him. So Christian Kirk.
I tend to agree, but
soft spot.
Mooney, so much
He's your
potential.
sleeper.
But yeah, no, I do agree that if you have to, if it's dire straits, I think he's cuttable, at least until they figure themselves out in Chicago.
Unfortunately, he's cuttable. And you're right, it's not Mooney's fault. But if there's a Hunter Renfrow out there, or Christian Kirk, or you can probably snag them.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it for the Monday Night Guillotine.
All right, that's a sad segment, but yeah, it's important. It's an important one. All right, well, let's move into a little more positive segment. That is our waiver wire and streamers of the week, heading into week 4. Kind of sad that's week 4 already. Good thing there's an extra week of football this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Anthony, you hit us.
All right, we'll start with the waiver wire. So a big week this week. Actually, I'll throw 2 guys out here on the Buffalo Bills, Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. So we had talked about...
I disagree with one of those.
Cole Beasley.
for ethical reasons.
Yeah. So that's what I was just going to mention, that we thought the off the field issues, COVID related issues would be his downfall this season, but he's had 2 solid weeks in a row. So, I mean, you can't ignore that. Emmanuel Sanders had his first big week out of the 3 weeks. So I would say Cole Beasley would be the target over Emmanuel Sanders. But I think, Moose, you're still skeptical on potential issues that could arise later on in the season with him.
Well, I mean, COVID is going to be a factor at some point. In fact, I'm not even sure how the Baltimore Ravens got out of not being penalized. They had 13 people with COVID-related issues.
Yeah.
My understanding is the situation is getting slightly worse in some parts of the United States.
Yeah.
And Cole Beasley has taken a firm stance that he will not be vaccinated. Therefore, he could be a massive liability at some point in the season. So for now, you could pick him up, but anticipate that you could have some COVID fallout.
So important to mention with him picking him up off the waiver wire, week 1, 13 targets, week 3, 13 targets. Week 2 was his low week, but he had 10 points week 1, 5.6
for the Bees.
2, for the Bees, and 15.3 this past week.
Sheesh.
So are you guys
targets.
Do you guys like that one? How do you feel about Emmanuel Sanders?
So what are his targets? 13, 13,
and 4 in week 2.
Oh, the 13, 4, 13.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm leaning towards Emmanuel Sanders.
I think Emmanuel Sanders he scored 2 touchdowns. That's what made his week. But he's not getting a lot of targets.
Week 1, he had 8. Week 2, he had 6. Week 3, he had 6. Week 1, 7.2 fantasy points, 5.8, and then 23.9 this week. And it was basically because of his touchdowns. But he would have still got into the double digits with his 94 yards and 5 receptions this past week.
Yeah, I mean, if we knew who exactly the wide receiver 2 was on Buffalo, you would definitely want that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
I think.
Would you rather have Cole Beasley or Darnell Mooney?
Cole Beasley.
Emmanuel Sanders or Darnell Mooney?
Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders.
Okay. What about same questions, McCole Hardman?
Or Emmanuel Sanders?
Or either of the Buffalo guys, yeah.
I would say Mecole over Sanders and Cole Beasley over Hardman.
Okay. So you're Beasley first, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of targets. I don't want either of them. But
you don't want either of them. 13 targets is
I know it's a lot. But it's for the reasons Moose was talking about, and
But I mean,
don't think I
waiver
could do it.
wire doesn't necessarily need to be a guy like he's not considered a streamer, but waiver wire, you pick him up for a couple weeks. They have a couple favorable matchups coming. They're playing Houston this coming week. I mean, you can drop him after.
But the thing is, so if there's a favorable matchup, I think Cole Beasley's numbers go down because Cole Beasley's like the third down guy. So if it's a weak defense, they're going to light up Stephon Diggs or Emmanuel Sanders.
Okay.
Right? Do you agree with that?
Sure.
Well, don't just sure me on it because
I don't know. I
think Cole Beasley shines against tougher defenses because they're not covering Cole Beasley.
Well, how many points did Beasley have when they destroyed Miami? 35-0.
5.6.
Okay, and he wasn't targeted that much. That could be leaning towards Moose's.
But apparently, so we look at Washington as being a good defense. And
that's it.
But,
So
but they're not.
But that's what I was just going
We
to say.
thought they were, but so we talk about trends. 3 games make a trend.
They're
Guess
ranked
what?
in
Washington's not good.
They're ranked in the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Washington. Thanks, football team. I have to rename your team.
yeah, but
Softball team.
it's incredible they still haven't figured out a name. It's not that hard. Anyways, let's move on to the next waiver wire individual.
Yeah. So this guy is still available in most leagues. Hunter Renfrow has seen another double-digit week. He is a Cole Beasley type that Derek Carr
probably
loves.
has been vaccinated. Yeah.
Yes.
When Derek Carr has
A
his extra blotch of eyeliner on, it's because he's looking for Hunter Renfrow. Okay. So Moose, I know you're high on Brian Edwards, and Brian Edwards
had a good
totally different type of receiver.
Okay.
Yes, Brian Edwards is, I think could get there. He could be that big play, big receiver guy. But Hunter Renfrow is he's a poor man's Cooper Kupp, is what he is. So he's not going to see those numbers, but he's that possession type receiver. If you're in PPR or half PPR, he's going to get you a lot of points just by catching balls. And he sees lots of targets. Oh, Darren Wallace covered. Hunter here. Yeah. So I like Hunter Renfrow for sure.
All right, moving on. AJ Green. I know Moose mentioned him last week, and Dave, you were on the other side of that. I am maybe siding with Moose now because, well, at least for now.
Well, my statement was that if DeAndre Hopkins is hampered,
yeah,
AJ Green for sure.
Exactly. So I agree with that. He was definitely hampered this week. Christian Kirk and AJ Green was were the successful receivers over in Arizona. So I think you can look to them, follow closely what's going on with DeAndre Hopkins.
I know that Rondale Moore had a terrible outing, like under a point or something crazy, but I still think he's the young, spry, talented compared to AJ Green.
I think he's a Gabriel Davis type guy where we know he's super talented, but he's just behind the other guys. He's a different type of receiver.
So I agree. If Hopkins is out or injured, AJ Green fills the Hopkins role better because he's that tall, big target, can throw it up to him. Christian Kirk's a speed demon. Rondale Moore is more of a possession guy. So it depends on game script. I agree.
Right. So so keep an eye on the status of DeAndre Hopkins.
Never wish it upon anyone, but.
Right. Let's go to a different position. Running back, there's Peyton Barber. Moose and I spoke a little bit about him yesterday because Josh Jacobs was inactive with an injury. And we know that he's in and out. He will most likely be in and out during the season. So Peyton Barber for now looks better than Kenyon Drake. And I'm not high on Kenyon Drake at all. So I think it might be worth a pickup. Just the stash.
I agree with Moose's take. Moose's take it's a kind of a flash. Listen, Anthony, how often do you go to the barber? Once every 3-4 weeks?
More than me.
Once every 4?
3.
Once every 3. And you go quite often. I think that's about as often as you'll see this barber as well. Once every 3 weeks. Maybe.
Yeah, but when Josh Jacobs is out, you have to make a decision. And if you're the Josh Jacobs owner and you have the option to pick up Peyton Barber, I agree. You never know if it's going to be Kenyon Drake or him. He had way more carries than Kenyon Drake. That was the only thing that's interesting to me.
He did. So, yeah, if you're the Jacobs owner and you want to handcuff him, handcuffing Jacobs.
And we talked about this last week. The running backs on the waiver wire, there's not that many. We were throwing out guys like McKissick, Pollard, but those
Carlos
guys are
Hyde.
Yeah, but the top guys, McKissick and Pollard, those guys are gone. So you got Gainwells, you got Carlos Hydes that are putting up 4 fantasy points.
Well, no. Kenneth Gainwell outscored Carlos Hyde
By
Kenneth
0.3.
Gainwell.
So I said they both had 4 fantasy points.
That? Didn't we? Doesn't Anthony
No.
have
I
a
think
check?
it's a beer bet.
I
No.
remember
I thought it was
beer
a beer
betting
bet.
this. I remember
I think
beer
it
betting
was.
this.
You offered the beer bet, and I said I am not betting on Carlos Hyde.
All right. You
But
chickened out.
Both
That's
of them
fair.
finish in 4 with 4 fantasy points, 4 point something.
Yeah, it's
so
not good. It's not good.
they're both not good. So that's why I think Peyton Barber is worth a pickup over those guys, just when Josh Jacobs is out.
Yeah, I also think game script for Kenneth Gainwell didn't really go in his favor. And of course, that's also a factor in every game.
Considering that Philly will most likely play like this every week.
Well, no, he was getting garbage time. He was garbage time Gainwell today because
He had 0 points in the first
But,
half.
like,
Yeah, I
did
know.
Miles? I think I saw Miles Sanders run the ball like 4 times.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Gainwell's like the pass catching guy. The shifty
No, I just mean
pass
they weren't.
catching
They
back.
weren't running the ball.
Yeah. Miles Sanders, 2 carries, Gainwell, 1 carry. It's awful. It's just
Yeah,
awful.
2 carries for Miles Sanders. Holy smokes!
Yeah,
Oh
no.
boy. Oh boy. All right. What other running backs are out there?
I didn't find any worth mentioning. I guess the Carlos Hydes and the Gainwells are still out there. I saw them as well. But other than that, there's nobody that caught my eye. I don't know for you guys.
Man, there's got to be something. I mean, what if Chuba Hubbard's available out there on the waiver wire? You go pick him up. He's got to be the number 1 guy for running backs with McCaffrey out for the next 2 weeks, anyways.
I mean,
In terms of waiver wire ads,
he wasn't available in most of my leagues already. But I mean, if he is there, I'd say pick him up. But this might be a situation like Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber, where you might see Royce Freeman be the lead running back on that team because he did look more explosive than Chuba Hubbard. But who knows? Maybe with a full week prep, he might be better.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that Chuba Hubbard's definitely a waiver wire pickup.
Yeah.
I think he'll be
If
the
he's
most sought after this week, and people are desperate. So adjust accordingly if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. There's 2 more guys that I wanted to mention. So there's, and this one's maybe a little bit more controversial. I have Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't know how to pronounce his.
Yeah, we're only talking football players on this podcast, Anthony.
Yeah, he's a football player. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown left the Tennessee Titans due to injury. If they are both inactive this week, you could look to him because he started catching balls towards the end of the game. So pay attention to the status of Julio Jones and A.J. Brown.
Hold on, though. They have a 3rd receiver besides this guy. They have 2 other receivers besides this guy.
They have Chester Rogers.
Chester Rogers
Yes.
and not Anthony Schwartz, Daz Newsome, the rookie.
No, they have
They drafted a rookie.
Chester Rogers, Cameron Batson. They have Josh Reynolds, who did nothing.
Oh, yeah, they got Josh Reynolds. So I don't know about this guy. I mean, Anthony scored a touchdown. So I know he had 10 points, so he's flashy, but
he caught 4 of 4 for 53 yards, 1 touchdown. I watched this game. I liked what I saw from him.
Okay,
He
I'll trust
might
you.
not be the guy next week. It could be Chester Rogers because he also caught a touchdown, but
It's more than Julio Jones did.
yep. So, I mean, pay attention to the status of the top receivers on Tennessee and pick up one of the guys. Take a
because
shot.
AJ Brown will be out, maybe Julio's out, but my guess is that it'll be a Derrick Henry day next week. Who are they playing? Who are the Titans playing? The Jets. I don't think they'll need to pass that much.
No.
I think it'll be Derrick Henry for the win. Maybe
And
a couple
then-
Tannehill rushing TDs.
Yeah, and then the last waiver wire pickup I have is Ty Conklin.
Oh, yeah.
Ty Conklin and maybe our boy TTT you can look at as well.
Tommy Tremble touchdown.
And Dawson Knox.
Oh,
Although
and Dawson
I'm pretty
Knox.
sure Dawson Knox is not on waivers.
He was in a couple. So Dawson Knox is.
He could be. Yeah.
And they're playing Houston this week, I believe, Buffalo. So go get your tight ends. If you're still struggling, Ty Conklin, looks good because Cousins is just
Dawson Knox is tight end 5 on the year right now.
yeah. So I mean,
did any of us have him in the top when we talked about tight end rankings preseason?
No.
Did anybody talk? We didn't talk about Knox. Moose, you've been on Knox for a while. You're a tight end whisperer kind of guy, and I remember when I picked him up in the offseason in Dynasty, and you were like, "Good pickup. That could be your tight end." And I was like, "Is it really?" And
I mean, he's good because they like he's a red zone target for them in Buffalo.
big time.
Yep.
And he's reliable.
and Ty Conklin's in the top 12 too. So go get these
off
guys.
of one game.
Yeah.
He's not just in the top 5. Is he like third? He's like third or fourth.
Conklin?
Yeah.
He's 9th from what I'm looking at. I don't know if this is updated.
Okay. My bad.
Conklin is an absolute beast,
8th.
and he is going to tear it up in Minnesota.
There you go. You've heard
You
it
heard
here.
it here first.
Do we move on to streamers?
Remember that guy, Chris Herndon? What's he doing these days?
Sweet.
Okay.
Nothing.
Let's talk
God,
streamers. Week. It's not the first bye week. The first bye weeks happen week 5, I believe.
Week 6. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you might be right. It's a week later than normal. The first bye weeks are a week later than normal, so whatever that is. But it is, you might still be looking for streamers based off all these injuries, so it's important to keep that in mind. So, Anthony, who's your first streamer for us?
For QB, I have Kirk Cousins still available in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, he might be in the top for QB so far this season. He is currently number 4 on the year for fantasy
I got
points.
him at 5. What are you on, fantasy data?
Yeah, I'm on fantasy data.
Why is it different? Why is it
know.
different? It frustrates me. And Sleeper, get serious.
Anyways, he's top 5, which is pretty good for a waiver wire streamer. He might even be a starting quarterback on most teams, depending who you drafted. If you drafted a Joe Burrow, he's doing better than Russell Wilson.
Is he?
Yeah, Russell Wilson on fantasy data is 11th.
Wow. Oh, because he had one really bad week,
But it's
right?
still really
Week 1.
early. This is all going to get shaken up.
It will. I mean, Daniel Jones is still in there.
Yeah.
Arnold sitting in there at 12.
Yeah, and he was my other streamer. So my QB streamers are Kirk Cousins, Taylor Heinecke, Sam Darnold. Even though Washington doesn't look that great and they're probably going to struggle, he's still getting 20 points. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do to get fantasy points. So I think it'll be better depending on the matchups for him. But yeah, I think you can turn to any of those guys, those 3 guys. I don't know if you had another name out there. Dave?
For streamers? No.
Yeah, I think you had Baker and Jameis, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to risk it, Darnold. If Darnold's out, Darnold or Cousins are out there, those are way better options. Those are the 2 best options.
Yeah.
Then if you're bottom of the barrel would be Jameis and Baker. And Baker's basically going to get 18 points every week. Like he's not going to blow it out of the water. He's usually not going to be terrible, but that's where he's at. And the only reason I mentioned him is he's a favorable matchup next week. Who the Browns playing? The Browns are playing the Vikings. So the Vikings are good enough to score on the Browns. So the Browns will have to pass a little bit. So.
Jameis Winston, other than week 1, is putting up game management. A game management stat line. He threw under. He hasn't thrown for over 150 yards in each game. Oof. He's had 29 fantasy points week 1, 10.3, and then 13.5. So, like I mentioned,
it's more like he's like a game assistant manager, if anything. Yeah.
Something to be mindful of though is like they were displaced right before this week's game.
That's true. No, the last 2 weeks. Yeah,
last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but okay, but still 3 weeks of under 150 yards. He doesn't throw a lot for a lot of yards, so the chances.
And like, Taysom Hill came in the game quite a couple times,
too. But he is at the bottom of the list for QBs for now.
This has Giants upset written all over it, actually. They're playing the New York Giants, who
have a pretty decent defense.
3. They have a decent defense. Saquon's starting to come around.
Dante Pettis might be the wide receiver 1.
Goodness gracious.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Moving on to defensive streamers. I have the Bengals, Miami, Titans, and surprisingly, Buffalo is out there in a lot of leagues. Buffalo is playing Houston this week. I got to check the other matchups because
Cincinnati against the Jaguars.
Oh yeah,
and Trevor Lawrence is throwing some picks. He's good for a few picks. That'll be good. And the Titans are against the Jets, and same goes for Zach Wilson. They had 0 points this past week, and he threw 4 interceptions against New England. So, Tennessee Titans are no staunch defense, but good enough to eat up Zach Wilson and the Jets, I think.
Yes, and
Washington football team they're going to be dropped because they're terrible, but they're going up against Atlanta. So, yeah, if you have to.
Buffalo, I feel this is a streaming defense that if you pick up, you can kind of stash. After Houston, they have Kansas City and Tennessee, a bye week, but then they have Miami, Jacksonville, Jets. So that is a strong a perfect 3-game matchup for your defense. So I would say Buffalo should be up there, considering that they also have a good matchup this coming week.
By the way, Moose, our Houston versus New York Jets, worst team in the league bet. Houston won that first week against the Jags, and they're going to ride that. They're going to ride that to your victory. It's like the Jets are going to go 0-17. The Texans 1-16.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Goodness. Yeah. Dang it. Yeah, and those are those are our streamers.
Our. Yeah. Cool. Moose, any additions? No. Good.
No additions.
Well, fantastic. Well, then I think it's time to jump right into They Said It on Reddit.
Beautiful. Pretty good.
Surprised you with it. I saw Anthony had a tough time with it yesterday, so I'm here for it.
Voice cracked at the beginning. It was atrocious.
Well, the cracking usually helps because it's in a cracked voice the whole time, basically. So you just got to hold the crack.
Hold the crack.
Noted.
This one's coming from user NYGTTP. How much do you value depth? When it comes to this time of the year, injuries start stacking up and guys become more and more valuable. If you're in a position where you have depth, are you more often to trade that depth for star power or keep it for bye weeks and injuries?
Well, thanks, New York Giants Tommy Tremble player, NYGTTP. Appreciate the question. I was just thinking about that joke, so I don't even know. What was the question? How much do you value depth? Okay.
Yes.
Moose, you always talk about during the draft. When we're drafting, you're like, depth doesn't win you championships.
No. Value doesn't win you championships.
Value, sorry, but depth does. Okay. So what do you do? Do you trade? Okay. So
let him explain.
Answer the question, Moose.
Well, you're just making things up here. I mean, it's super important to have depth. I think
answered. Thanks. That's been it for us on Reddit.
Well, especially at running back, and we've said it at length. You need to have backup running backs. I mean, everyone saw it. People who had Travis Etienne, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, all these guys, Cam Akers.
Oh yeah.
All these guys injured before the season even really started. And if you don't have depth on your bench, well, you absolutely got roasted. So in terms of running backs, I would say don't trade them away unless you're getting some incredible value for whatever you're trading away, which is highly unlikely.
Right.
Since, your depth is, you're not going to be getting first string running backs for your depth pieces.
Right. So this is, this question, having depth can be a value in 2 ways. So I had a trade this week that I was able to make, and I got Moose's opinion on it as well, just to make sure I would be making the right decision. I traded Antonio Gibson for Justin Jefferson. The guy wanted Gibson for running back depth because he has Josh Jacobs. And then he had a mediocre running back too, but I don't know why he wanted Antonio Gibson. Maybe he believes in his talent. I have great running back depth. I have Dalvin Cook as well, who's like having 2 running backs on your team. So I think having
when he doesn't play. Yeah. So what'd you do this week?
I put in Trey Sermon and I put in somebody else, and I ended up winning. So
anyways, because he had depth.
But my point was, when you have depth, you can cover your bad weeks. So I had enough running back depth to fill in for Dalvin Cook when he went out with an injury, and having the depth also, you can trade pieces to get valuable pieces back. So having depth doesn't mean you have to trade your depth pieces. It allows you to maybe trade a starter to get a better starter, and slot in your depth pieces. So it's kind of, it benefits you in both ways. You can make trades when you have the depth, and that's what we encourage in the drafts, especially for running backs where injuries are plentiful.
Yeah, and trading away your running back depth is risky, like Moose said. I think wide receiver depth, or if you have 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, go for it. But running back depth is tricky. But especially this time of the year, but if it's later towards your trade deadline, maybe go for it if you want to go all in, and you got to risk it for the biscuit sometimes. But right now at this point, I'd wait on trading running back depth.
Right, unless
you might find yourself with 0 RB1.
Unless you were the smartest guy in your league and you filled in all those, you drafted more running backs than your league opponents. So, yeah,
very possible. Great question.
Or the guy with 2 tight ends on his team,
those guys with 2 tight ends, so much depth.
Much depth.
That's catching on too. I know in another league, Moose, someone redraft Kelsey and Hawkinson in our To the Moon league.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And he's playing both of them. He's starting both of them. It's a 2 flex league. And, why not?
Why not?
And then if somebody wants a tight end, they got to come knock on his door.
Points are points. It doesn't matter where they come from.
That's
come knock on our door.
That's already some words of wisdom. But I think we should talk about beers first. I've been having PBR. Because I bought some specifically to chug, because this is usually my chugging beer.
Yeah.
Didn't taste like I remember it, but it's usually pound for pound one of the better beers. But having a good old PBR.
Your mouth is accustomed to water now. You forgot what beer tasted like.
Do another Labatt 50.
And I'm doing another Kronenberg 1664. Had a few IPAs yesterday. I do not want to drink anymore. I was a little bit sauced.
A couple of IPAs and you're like fed for a week.
Yeah. I forgot to eat supper yesterday as well. Didn't even realize.
That'll get you. That will get you indeed. Yeah. Okay. Words of wisdom, gentlemen?
Always put your best shot forward, especially rolling into waiver wires.
Absolutely.
Go get your guys.
Go get your guys. For me, my words of wisdom, guys, on Saturday, we had some really unfortunate news in the fantasy football community. And that was the surprise passing of Fantasy Pros analyst Mike Tagliere. And I just wanted to mention that on the podcast and give a little tribute to him. We were first talking, Moose, the beginning of COVID. We were talking on the phone a lot, nothing to do, quarantine, locked up. And you mentioned, Anthony and I have talked a lot about starting a fantasy football podcast. Would you be into that? And I was like, you know what? That'd be pretty fun. I was pretty into fantasy football, but not as much as we are now. And so I took to Fantasy Pros, and I would listen to Mike Tagliere daily last year. And he was such a good analyst. I loved listening to him. And in a time when, a terrible time, I wasn't doing so well, quarantined and locked up and nothing to do. He brought me a lot of joy and great fantasy tips. So he will be missed. The industry lost a titan. And so it's a very sad day. So condolences to him and his family. So Mike Tags, as he's known, if you're listening, as always, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.